Today we're going to be talking about a show that has been produced by an acclaimed director and one of my favorite directors, Michael Mann. For today, we're going to be focusing on the HBO Max series Tokyo Vice that he produced. Let's talk for a minute. Only 3 episodes of this show have aired at the time of this review that I'm recording right now. I'm a big fan of Michael Mann. The rating for this unique series is an 8 out of 10. For this series and the true story that it talks about, let me just paint a picture for a second. It's set in Tokyo, Japan in 1999. 1999, yeah. That's how far back this goes. In Tokyo Vice, we find American journalist Jake Edelstein settling into his new job as a journalist at a major paper in Tokyo. He's trying to make a big name for himself. He's trying to learn about the culture. He's trying to adapt and work well with his colleagues. As he is on the police beat, he's trying to befriend himself to the Tokyo police. Very quickly, he's also understanding that the Yakuza is going to be playing a very big role in whatever he's going to be covering as a journalist on the police beat. There's actually quite a few pros about this series. What's really enjoyable is that Tokyo itself is kind of made as a character in this series. It's beautifully shot. The score is fantastic and provides kind of an eerie, cool atmosphere to the whole show. And guess what? The composers for this show are Danny Benzi and Sondra Urians, who are also the composers for Ozark, another great show. This show has all the usual positive characteristics of a Michael Mann film. Your leading actors are fantastic. You have that with Ansel Elgort here, with Ken Watanabe, and the entire supporting cast, whether it's from the newspaper or from the police force or the cast members playing the Yakuza. Everyone does a terrific job. All the detail that goes into the journalism setting, the police setting, the Yakuza background setting, the underworld, giving you this idea of tension of characters who are conflicting from different lifestyles, different backgrounds, the American style, the Japanese style. It creates great tension, and it's just very hard to take your eyes away from the screen. Now, let's talk about the cons for a second too. And yes, this series is also consistent with some of the negative aspects to movies and shows that involve Michael Mann. First thing is that some of the scenes drag way too long. It gets kind of boring at times and you kind of tune out, but I'm still enthusiastic about the show because characters are very interesting. When it does refocus back to the setting of Tokyo, the underground, or the criminal world, or the journalism room, or East meets West clash, it's very interesting, and that is detail that is hard to take your eyes off of. The second issue actually does involve the amount of detail in the series. Now, it might seem strange. Why would I complain about there being detail, especially when this series is trying to give its interpretation and trying to tell the story of Jake Edelstein and the experience he had again with trying to do his job covering the criminal beat for the Japanese newspaper that he worked for. Even with that being understood, and with the understanding that sure, there's got to be a lot of layer and texture that you can go into, a lot of detail you can explore in the world of journalism, police force, the criminal underworld, if we want to focus on the Yakuza here. But there still is such a thing as too much detail, unnecessary detail. At times I like this where he wants to come across as authentic, but sometimes it's just too much, and sometimes I just don't care when you go into that much detail. Leave a little bit to the imagination and respect your audience by showing them that they do not have to be spoon-fed every little bit of information, that they can connect the dots together and we can still enjoy the series. An example of this is a very famous Michael Mann movie is the 1995 film Heat, where you have the police and the detectives who's trying to chase down a group of robbers, especially with the Robert De Niro character and the thieves that they go after banks and various scores and heists. There's so much detail, what they study, what they learn, how they try to cover their tracks and all of that, which it is kind of like a interesting thriller up to a point, but even at times in the beginning of the movie, they go into way too much detail that no one cares about. If you think that's a bit much, if you were to go even a little further back to the 1981 movie with James Caan called Thief, this is definitely a predecessor to Michael Mann's later movie of Heat. In Thief, there's an opening scene where James Caan is doing a heist, and all the detail, the opening scene, I'm sure it was probably only maybe 5 minutes, 7 minutes. It felt like 15, 20 minutes of just watching this guy do various things with engineering and physics to make the heist possible. There was a point where I'm like, okay, this is no longer cool, this is torture. Unfortunately, this is still a minor problem that does exist in a lot of Michael Mann's other movies and shows, and now he has the upcoming movie about Enzo Ferrari, and I really want to see, is it possible to put too much detail into the Ferrari story to make any part of that story, not just because of the cars, but the man himself, who is very interesting. If you can even for a minute make that story boring, shame on you. But now, moving on beyond the negative part, I want to say that Tokyo Vice is still a very interesting story. It's great casting with combining Ansel Elgort and Ken Watanabe. They play really well off of each other. The other great thing too is that it's not really clear as to what is going to be causing the major tension going forward. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm saying it's kind of mysterious and interesting. And that's what I think is kind of propelling this series forward. There's a lot of mystery as to what is happening. How do the police and the Yakuza deal with each other, and how is Jake kind of getting caught in the crossfire of all of that, and is that going to put him in danger? I know he wants to advance his career, but is he going to do things that are reckless and risky? It makes for a very fascinating story. 8 out of 10. There are still 5 episodes left of this series, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going to take us. I hope you check it out. Enjoy. Thank you for listening.